All right, so you're thinking about going for a personal trust officer interview. That means you'd be handling people's money, their legacies, a ton of responsibility.
It's a big deal, no doubt.
Big responsibility, but probably some big rewards too, right?
Oh, for sure. And we've got some help to get you ready.
Yep, we're diving into RoleCatcher's career and interview guides. Think of this deep dive as like your cheat sheet for not just knowing the answers, but getting why they matter.
Exactly. It's about walking in confident and ready to impress.
Totally. So let's break it down. What does a personal trust officer even do? I know it's money, but is it more than that?
Way more. It's not just managing money. It's like you're deciphering legal stuff, advising on investments, and sometimes you're even navigating family drama.
Whoa, okay, so you're like a financial detective meets a family therapist.
Kinda, yeah. The career guide actually digs into this.
Oh, what'd it say?
It points out you're not just crunching numbers. You're figuring out tough legal language, making sure investments match what the trust wants to do, and yeah, sometimes dealing with the emotions around inheritance.
Before we get to the actual questions, tell me more about this AI thing RoleCatcher does. It's like a personal coach, right?
It is. It's pretty awesome. The AI analyzes job descriptions, then helps you make your answers perfect for what they're looking for, plus it even gives you feedback.
So it's like having a tool that helps you fine-tune everything to match what each company wants.
Yep, exactly.
All right, let's jump into the questions. RoleCatcher says the first one is, how do you stay up to date on all those changes in trust and estate law? Sounds basic, but I bet it's more than that.
Oh, definitely. It's not enough to say, I read articles.
Right, they want to know you actually care.
Yeah, they want to see you're proactive.
So what's a better way to answer this?
Talk about specific things you do. Like maybe you go to industry conferences, you're part of organizations like the Financial Planning Association, or you subscribe to, Trusts and Estates magazine. That shows you're really into it.
Not just cramming the night before.
Exactly.
What are some traps people fall into with this question?
One big one is saying you just rely on your company to keep you updated. Employers do give training, but showing you go above and beyond, that's important.
Right, like you actually care about this stuff.
Another one is being too vague, like, I read articles, doesn't tell them anything.
Got to name those publications.
Exactly.
Got it. Be specific and show initiative.
Okay.
Next question. Can you explain the difference between a revocable and an irrevocable trust? I feel like this is going to get technical.
It can, yeah. But what really matters is not just knowing the definitions, but explaining them in a way anyone could get.
Right, like you would to a client who doesn't speak lawyer.
Exactly.
How would you make this click for someone?
Imagine you're talking to a friend. You could say, a revocable trust is like having a file cabinet you control. You can change it or even get rid of it any time. But an irrevocable trust, that's like giving that cabinet away for good.
Oh, I like that. Simple. What kind of follow-up questions could come from this?
They might ask about when each type of trust is a good idea. Like, when would you suggest a client use an irrevocable one?
Okay, so we need to be ready to actually apply the knowledge, not just repeat the textbook.
Exactly.
What would be a good answer to that follow-up?
You could talk about situations like estate tax planning or wanting to protect assets. You could say an irrevocable trust might be good if someone's trying to minimize estate taxes or keep their assets safe from creditors.
Smart. So it shows you're thinking about what it actually means for people, not just the legal mumbo-jumbo.
Right, the real world stuff.
Okay, this next one seems less technical, more about people skills.
Right.
How do you handle tough conversations with clients or family members?
This is all about how well you understand people and how you communicate.
Because this is a job where feelings are definitely going to come up.
Oh, yeah, you're dealing with sensitive money issues, maybe even family disagreements.
So what's the best way to show you can handle that?
Focus on really listening, empathy, and being focused on solutions. Don't just say, I'm good at communicating. Give a real example. Like maybe you had to help two people who were inheriting something figure out a disagreement. Or maybe you helped someone understand some complicated legal document.
Stories, always good. What are some mistakes people make with this question?
One is saying you avoid conflict or get defensive. Instead, show you can stay calm, address things head on, and find a way to make it work.
So be the problem solver.
Right, and don't be too general. Saying I'm a good listener is weak. Describe a specific time your listening skills helped fix a tough situation.
Show, don't tell.
Exactly.
This is where RoleCatcher's AI feedback could be super helpful, right?
Oh, absolutely. For this kind of question, it looks for keywords about communication, empathy, and conflict resolution. It makes sure you're saying the right things.
Awesome. All right, next up. Can you give an example of a time you had to make a tough ethical decision at work? This one feels heavy.
It is, and that's the point. They want to see your moral compass, how you make tough calls the right way.
So should we use real examples or make something up?
Real is always better. Think back to your career. Find a time where you faced a genuine ethical dilemma. It doesn't have to be huge, maybe a conflict of interest or having to balance competing priorities.
For example, what if a client wants to make an investment you think is super risky, even if the trust documents say it's okay?
Perfect example. It shows you care more about doing what's best for the client, even when it's hard.
Even if it means pushing back a little.
Exactly. When you're describing the situation, focus on what you did to make the ethical choice. Did you talk to colleagues, get legal advice, or have an honest conversation with the client?
It's about showing the process how you got to that decision.
Right.
What are some no-nos here?
Don't downplay the ethical challenge or act like you're perfect. Everyone messes up. Sharing a time you learned from a mistake can actually show you care about being ethical.
Makes you human.
Another trap is picking an example that makes you look bad. Choose something that shows you can make good ethical decisions, not something that makes them doubt you.
Good point. Okay, we've done 4 questions. For each one, we've talked about what they're really asking, how to approach it, and the common traps. Before we move on, I want to mention RoleCatcher's AI again. It seems really powerful.
It is. Imagine a coach that analyzes your answers based on the exact job you want. It's a game changer.
That's incredible. Okay, let's keep going and see what other insights RoleCatcher has.
Okay, let's dive back in. This next question is all about how you get things done. How do you prioritize and manage your workload as a personal trust officer?
Oh yeah, time management. That's got to be huge,
Yeah.
especially with money and legal stuff involved. What do they really want to know with this one?
They want to make sure you have a system for handling a ton of work. It's not enough to say, I'm organized. You got to prove it.
So how do we do that? How do we show them we've got those organizational skills?
Think about the tools you use, your techniques, like do you use to-do lists, any special software, calendar reminders? Do you decide what's most urgent, most important? Maybe you have a system for tracking deadlines, keeping up with client communication.
And I'm thinking delegating's got to be part of this, right? Knowing when to pass things off to the team shows you can manage a whole workflow.
You got it. Highlighting that delegation piece, it shows you're a team player, know how to use everyone's strengths.
What kind of follow-up questions could they throw at you here?
They might ask about a time you had to juggle deadlines or deal with a sudden pile of urgent tasks. It's their way of seeing if you can stay cool under pressure, shift gears when things change.
So it's good to have a story ready, something that shows you can prioritize and meet deadlines even when things get crazy.
Exactly. And don't forget to talk about the good outcome. Did you finish everything on time? Did your boss or clients give you good feedback? Those details matter.
Okay, what about mistakes people make with this one?
One trap is being too vague. Saying, I'm good at multitasking, without any examples, that won't fly. Give them numbers, show them the results.
So instead of saying, I manage multiple client accounts, I should say something like, I managed a portfolio of 20 client accounts, got everything done on time, and exceeded client expectations.
And now that's what they want to hear. Another mistake is saying you're a perfectionist. It sounds good, but it can actually mean you're not efficient and can't let go of things.
So it's that balance, being detail-oriented, but also knowing when to delegate. Okay, let's move on to something about building relationships. How do you approach building and maintaining relationships with clients and beneficiaries?
This goes right to the heart of the job. It's not just about money. It's about connecting with people who might be going through some tough stuff.
Yeah, dealing with inheritances, family dynamics, that can be emotional. So what are the key ingredients to a good answer here?
Open communication, empathy, and being responsive. They need to feel heard and understood. Active listening, explaining things clearly, and being there to answer their questions are all super important.
It sounds like tailoring your approach is key too. Every client, every beneficiary is different, so adjusting to their needs and how they communicate makes a big difference.
Absolutely. It shows you're genuinely invested in building that relationship, not just going through the motions.
Okay, flipping it around, what should we avoid saying?
Don't give answers that sound like you're just doing a transaction, that you don't see them as people. You don't want to sound like clients are just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about econ connection.
Building trust, not just managing accounts. What kind of follow-up questions could they ask?
They might ask about a time you had to deal with a difficult client or beneficiary. That's where you show off those interpersonal skills.
Okay, that's a tough one. How do we prepare for that?
Think of a situation where you had to handle a tough personality, resolve a conflict, or manage someone's expectations. Maybe you had a beneficiary who kept questioning everything you did or wanted constant updates.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a challenge.
It can be, but it's also a chance to shine. You can describe how you stayed calm, professional, listened to their concerns, explained your reasoning, and reassured them you were doing what's best for them.
Show them you can handle those tough interpersonal situations, but still keep the client at the center. Another spot where RoleCatcher's AI can really help, right?
You bet. The AI can analyze what you say for keywords like communication, empathy, and relationship building. It can even pick up on your tone of voice and how you present yourself, helping you sound confident and professional.
Covers all the bases. Okay, what's next on the question list?
Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. Can you describe a time when you had to manage a complex trust administration process, including working with multiple parties and resolving conflicts?
Ooh, this one sounds like it really tests your ability to handle all those intricate parts of trust administration. Legal stuff, financial complexities, and managing relationships with everyone involved.
Exactly. They want to see you can handle all that and make it look easy. What kind of situation would be good to talk about here?
Maybe something like managing a trust with several beneficiaries, each with their own needs and expectations. Or a time you had to deal with a tricky asset distribution or a disagreement between family members.
Those are perfect. The point is to choose something that shows you can juggle all the different aspects of trust administration.
And what should we focus on when describing that situation?
Talk about the challenges, the steps you took to deal with them, and the positive result. Did you resolve the conflict? Did you make sure the trust was administered according to the grantor's wishes and all the legal stuff?
So it's not just about the problem, it's about how you solved it and made things right.
Exactly. Now for the don'ts. Don't pick an example that makes it sound like you struggled to manage things or couldn't resolve conflicts.
Right. You want to seem confident and capable. They need to see you as the problem solver, not the one who gets overwhelmed.
That's the key. Now for something a bit more personal. What do you consider to be the most important qualities for a successful personal trust officer?
This feels like a chance to show them you know yourself and what makes you good at this job.
It is. But it also shows you understand what really matters in this profession.
So what are they looking for? What qualities are important here?
Integrity is number one. They want to know you're honest, ethical, always acting in your client's best interest. It's all about trust, after all.
Makes sense. What else is important?
Being detail-oriented, strong analytical skills, great communication, and a commitment to always learning. Trust and estate law is always changing, so being willing to learn and adapt is crucial.
So it's not just listing these qualities, it's about giving examples that prove you have them.
Exactly. You could talk about a time your attention to detail saved the day, or how your communication skills helped solve a conflict. Real-life examples make your answer way stronger.
Show, don't tell, right? Paint a picture of your skills. What about follow-up questions?
They might ask you to elaborate on a certain quality or give a specific example from your past work. So be ready to go deeper and provide evidence.
This question really makes you think about yourself, huh? Knowing your strengths and being able to talk about them is so important in any interview.
Absolutely. And that leads us perfectly to our next question. How do you balance meeting client needs with complying with legal and regulatory requirements?
Ooh, good one. Gets right to that fiduciary duty thing. You're responsible for doing what's best for the client, but also got to follow all those laws and regulations.
It's a balancing act that takes expertise, good judgment, and a strong moral compass. They want to know you get this and have ways to handle it.
So what should we emphasize in our answer?
Highlight your ability to understand and apply the rules, your commitment to ethical decisions, and how well you can explain complicated stuff to clients.
It's like being both their advocate and protector of their assets. You need to balance those two things that sometimes seem like they're pulling in opposite directions.
That's it exactly. And when answering, don't ever imply you'd break the rules for a client or be so rigid that you ignore their needs. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're doing what's legally and ethically right while also serving your client well.
What about follow-up questions?
They might ask for examples of how you balanced competing priorities or how you stay up to date on the latest laws and regulations.
So have those examples ready and show them you're dedicated to staying informed.
Absolutely. This is another area where RoleCatcher's AI is a rock star. It analyzes your answers for keywords related to compliance, ethics, and communication, making sure you're hitting all the right notes and presenting yourself as a top candidate.
Amazing how AI can help you prepare for all these different aspects of the interview.
Totally. It's not just about what you say, it's how you say it too. The AI looks at your tone of voice, your pace, your body language, so you can project confidence and professionalism.
Okay, let's keep going with those questions. What's next?
Let's talk about risk. How do you approach managing risk in trust administration, including identifying and mitigating potential risks?
Risk management.
hmm
Got to be huge in this field. We're talking about people's money and their legacies. What do they want to know?
They're checking to see if you're proactive and have a system for managing risk, not just reacting when things go wrong.
So they want someone who can spot potential problems, figure out how bad they could be, and then come up with a plan to stop them.
You got it.
What are some key things a personal trust officer should do for good risk management?
First, you got to identify the risks. That means doing your homework on clients and beneficiaries, studying the trust documents, and keeping up with market trends, legal changes, and what's happening in the economy.
Being vigilant, always looking ahead, and trying to catch problems before they happen.
Right. Then you got to come up with strategies to minimize those risks. Maybe that means diversifying investments, getting insurance, setting up clear communication plans, and documenting every decision carefully.
Having a solid plan and being ready for anything, that's essential. How do we best answer this in an interview?
Show them you understand risk management and can use it in real situations. Give them examples of how you've handled risks in your past jobs.
So I might talk about a time I spotted a potential conflict of interest and took steps to avoid it, or maybe a time I put a new policy in place to make risk management stronger.
Those are perfect. It shows you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk when it comes to managing risk. Now, let's talk about what not to do.
Like what?
Don't act like risk management isn't important or that you only think about it when problems pop up. You want them to see you as proactive, not reactive.
Right. It's about being forward-thinking and anticipating challenges, not just putting out fires.
Exactly. And don't say you're completely risk-averse. Being cautious is good, but being too scared of risk can hold back investments and limit what you can do for clients.
It's about finding that balance between protecting assets and helping them grow. Is RoleCatcher's AI helpful for this question too?
Oh, yeah. It can look at your answer for keywords like risk identification, mitigation strategies, and compliance. It makes sure you're coming across as someone who understands risk and is responsible.
Awesome. Okay, last question time.
This last one is all about communication. Can you give an example of a time when you had to explain complex legal or financial stuff to a client or beneficiary who didn't have much knowledge in those areas?
This is so important for a personal trust officer. You're always dealing with legal and financial terms, but your clients probably don't speak that language. You got to break things down and make it clear and easy to understand.
Exactly. They want to see you can do this with patience, empathy, and a genuine desire to help people understand their financial situation.
Okay, so how do we communicate these complex things effectively? What are some good strategies?
Use plain language, skip the jargon. Try using analogies or metaphors to make abstract concepts more relatable. Break the information into smaller pieces. And most importantly, listen carefully to their questions and concerns. Make sure they feel heard and understood.
Make them feel comfortable and confident that they get it.
Right. What should we avoid doing when answering this one?
Let me guess, no being impatient or talking down to them.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to come across as if you think they're clueless or can't understand their own finances. It's about building that trust and rapport, even with complicated topics.
What about follow-up questions? What might they ask to dig deeper?
They might ask you to describe a specific time you had to simplify a legal document or explain a tough financial concept. Have a specific story in mind.
Once again, those real-life stories are key. What about RoleCatcher's AI? Can it help with this question?
Absolutely. RoleCatcher's AI can polish your answers to this type of question. It checks your response for keywords like communication, empathy, and clarity, so you sound like a skilled communicator who can connect with clients from all walks of life.
Like a communication coach in your pocket.
Exactly.
Well, we've covered a ton today, what a personal trust officer does, how to answer those tough interview questions, and how RoleCatcher can help. I feel like I learned so much.
Me too. This has been a really interesting deep dive into this complex but rewarding field.
But before we wrap up, I think we should go back to RoleCatcher's career guide and look at some of those tips and resources they have for career advancement. After all, getting the job is just the first step.
Totally agree. Let's explore what comes next and see how RoleCatcher can help you build a successful career as a personal trust officer.
All right, so we've talked about those tough interview questions. But what about after you actually land that personal trust officer job?
That's where RoleCatcher's career guide is super helpful. It
Yeah.
doesn't stop at interview prep. It's like a roadmap for your career showing you different paths you can take and how to keep learning and growing.
They mentioned the CTFA, the Certified Trust and Financial Advisor. What's so special about that?
Well, CTFA is kind of like a badge of honor. It tells everyone you really know your stuff when it comes to trust administration, investments, and estate planning.
Sounds important.
Oh, it is.
Right.
People in the industry respect it a lot, and it can open doors to promotions and maybe even higher pay.
So even if you're just starting out, it's good to think about those long-term goals, right? Figure out how certifications fit into that.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, RoleCatcher doesn't just tell you about certifications. They actually connect you with resources that help you plan your career path, figure out which certifications are right for you, and even find mentors in the field.
That's pretty cool. They also talked about showing off your skills and not just on your resume. What did they suggest?
They said it's good to create a portfolio that highlights some of your successful cases.
Cases, like trust administration cases.
Yeah, like a highlight reel of all the awesome work you've done. They also suggested presenting at industry conferences or writing articles for those industry magazines.
So it's about becoming a thought leader, not just someone who can do the basic job.
Right. And don't forget social media. Having a good online presence, especially on LinkedIn, that's super important these days. It's often the first thing potential employers or clients see.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on RoleCatcher's AI tools again. We talk about how they help with interview answers, but is there anything else they do?
Their AI can also help you polish your resume and even write your cover letter.
Really?
Yeah, their CV resume builder uses keywords from the job description to make sure your resume gets noticed by recruiters and those applicant tracking systems.
So you can get past those automated systems and actually get your resume in front of a real person.
Exactly. And their AI can help you write a really good cover letter too, one that's personal and highlights your skills.
So it's like having a whole career coaching team right there in your pocket.
That's a great way to put it. You know, RoleCatcher also mentioned how much AI is being used in hiring now. Think about how you can use that knowledge to your advantage, even beyond this one interview.
Yeah, that's a good point. Seems like it's becoming more and more important to understand how those AI systems work.
For sure. AI is being used for everything from screening resumes to doing those first-round interviews. Knowing how to work with AI-powered tools like RoleCatcher can give you a big edge. You can optimize your resume, practice your interview answers, basically learn to speak AI's language.
So it's like learning the rules of the game so you can win.
Right. And by using these tools, you're not trying to trick the system. You're actually making yourself a better candidate, someone who's more self-aware and prepared.
I think we've covered everything we need to know about personal trust officer interviews.
Yeah, we've gone through a lot.
Thanks to RoleCatcher, you're not just going into that interview with good answers, you're going in with a deeper understanding of what this job is all about.
Remember, this deep dive has given you the foundation. Now it's your turn to use it, show off your skills, and go get that job.
And that's a wrap for this episode of The Deep Dive. Good luck with those interviews.